and welcome to episode 4 of the Ammo Hour podcast. Today's guest is Dave Paterson of the band Patersani, sadly on a bit of a hiatus at the moment. I caught up with Dave, he's a good friend of mine, talking about old tour stories and all the usual stuff when we have a musician on, but also his work as a teacher, including studies into how social media is affecting the mental health of young people. We also talked about obviously the alarming pandemic of kind of suicides, unfortunately, and why that's at the moment disproportionately seems to be males. And he gave a bit of insight into his beliefs to why that is. Also spoke about less morose subjects as well, in terms of just the difference in acceptable kind of norms and language that used to be the case for the older generation, and obviously quite rightly why that's changing now. But the kind of guilt that we can feel when we look back to not challenging those things back then, which obviously shouldn't be a guilt. It should be something that we take note of and ensure that we act accordingly in future with the knowledge that we do have now. But just that we are growing up in a time where ignorances are shifting, and I think that's really important, and something when a lot of fingers get pointed to the wrongs of today's society, I think that's certainly something that is going well for us. So yeah, a range of interesting topics. He's a super lovely guy, well known throughout the music industry. A bit of Scotland's Dave Grohl about him, just the nicest guy. So yeah, great to catch up with him. Thanks so much for everyone that's been sending your feedback in. It's been good to hear, positive and constructive. Did have one person say that an hour's a bit long, so would I mind just halving it, but unfortunately the Ammo half hour doesn't quite have the same ring to it, so maybe just pause it, mate, and split into two. But yeah, I really appreciate guys taking the time to send that in. As always, you can catch the podcast on all the kind of major platforms, and you can watch it on YouTube. The easiest way to get the links to that, if you're not sure, is just to check out the Instagram page. That's just at the Ammo Hour, and there's a wee link tree in there, and you can just watch or listen on all the platforms there. Also, the link to our merch store is there, so if you want a piece of merch there's hoodies, sweaters, t-shirts, and it's not got podcast written all over it. It's the Ammo Collective, which is also the record label business that runs alongside this. So the Ammo Collective merch store is linked there as well. If you're just listening to this and you want to check it on your phone, it's the ammocollective.bigcartel.com, and you can get 20% off just by listening to the podcast as a wee thanks from us. So at checkout, just hit the Ammo Hour into there and you'll get that. So please, if you haven't already, share this and subscribe. The more we get, I can get things like a custom profile for the YouTube, a custom URL, which makes it a lot easier for people to find. It'll go higher up in the search results, things like that. So it's a really small thing, but if you are enjoying the podcast, just hit subscribe. I hope you're all doing really good. Who knows when this lockdown bullshit's going to end. But I just hope you're sticking in there. We're certainly getting to that period where it's getting really hard for everybody. But that just means, we're closer to the end. If you look how far this has all come. And I'm pretty confident that, as we move on with our lives, when this does finally lift, we're all just going to look back at this and think, what a fucking mad time. Even the best times in your lives, you look back sometimes and you think, fuck, I can't even really remember that. This is going to be like that. I don't need to promise you. That's just human nature. So we just got to graft a little bit, and then when we get back to normality, everything that we enjoyed before and things we took for granted, seeing friends, seeing family, it's just going to be that bit sweeter. So yeah, stick in there, and thanks so much for supporting this and listening to the conversations we're having. So without further ado, this is episode 4 of the Ammo Hour with Dave Paterson. Here we go, from the best looking man in Scottish music to now the best looking man in the Scottish school system, David Paterson.
I like that introduction. I want that introduction everywhere I go.
No problem, mate. I'll record it.
Yeah.
How's things? I know we were just speaking there off air. Let's not lie about it. But
yeah. Not bad. Like a bit weird. I think the same as everybody. lockdown isn't the best, but it is what it is. Everybody's in the same boat and trying to work from home. Got a 3-year-old running about the house who really doesn't get the concept of me working from home. She really doesn't understand that. She's just like, this is amazing. My dad's in the house. Like, I'm going to jump on his head while he's trying to teach a class and stuff like that. So,
And a new puppy as well, man.
she's 4 months old today. So, combination of a new Springer Spaniel puppy that needs like at least an hour's exercise every day. I'm terrified, by the way, for like Nicola Sturgeon coming on telling us that there's like exercise restrictions because like not for me, but for the dog. So Nicola Hen, you'll need to come around and walk my dog then.
What are you doing for the birthday? You got some friends coming round with lucky bags and that?
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, man. So yeah, I guess we know each other through. It was quite a funny one, wasn't it? Like my band at the time was looking for extras to like recreate a gig, and then you came up and showed up the whole band. This fucking 6'4" fucking Viking. I was like, nah, not him. Get him out.
I know. I think one. I can't remember who it was. Was it Connor? So that was filming for you.
No, this one was actually Particular Films. So it was someone that our manager at the time, Andrew Dice, knew, Joseph McLean. So they're really cool, like a wee indie film company. Yeah.
We're getting told to move slightly towards it. Like I think I was maybe like 2 or 3 rows back for it was a Glasgow Stranger video, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
And I got moved over towards the side of the stage because, like, I think if I'd stayed where I was standing, you wouldn't have seen like Big Rob or something.
That's a travesty. You can't have that.
I couldn't do that to the female fans of the band. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You just see the back of my head.
What a treat, you and Rob in the same video for female or male lovers of bearded men. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, man, I think that was most people you meet in those circumstances, like it would have just been like a wee fleeting, like hello, like obviously you guys hung out, everyone hung out. We bought in some tinnies, I think, and
yeah.
Obviously everyone was just chatting to everyone, but like we just became real good friends after that, and obviously found out that you and your brother Craig were kind of active. I don't know if you were how far along you were in at that point, or if you were just starting it, but you told me about Patersani at that time, I think.
I think we weren't that long into it. We hadn't been doing it for too long. Basically, when I saw that you were I liked your band. I was a fan of the band, and then I saw that you were looking for people for the video. I don't know. It must have been maybe a holiday or something. But I was off work anyway, and it was in the 13th note, wasn't it?
Yeah, man.
And I lived in Brigton, so it was like 10 minutes down the road, and I was just like that. Something to do, a wee bit different on a Tuesday afternoon or whatever it was. And like you said, I think you guys got some tins in, so it's just like go and get a few drinks on a Tuesday afternoon in the 13th note, as you do, being a music video.
Win-win.
Yeah, I remember I saw you guys unloading the van outside though, and I didn't know you. I did like any of you guys at this point. I was like, oh, I'll be helpful. And I came over and I was like, oh, do you want a hand with the stuff? And you're like, mate, we need to get footage of us taking the stuff in for the video.
I know. Would have been good though, eh? Get a roadie. Yeah. So obviously from then we just kind of really loved what your band was about as well, and kind of played quite a few shows over the years together, didn't we?
I think, I think of all the bands that we played with you guys the most. I think, but because there was quite a few. Like when we did the Tuts show for New Year's Revolution, I know you were the guest DJ.
That's right. Yeah, forgot that. Eh? Imagine that. Eh? Calling a DJ, just literally sitting on Spotify, hit shuffle. Like this is
Spotify,
great.
Get a case of tenants or whatever it was DF gave you for doing it.
Probably the standard 7 Carlsberg between 5, mate.
And then we did the show up in Perth with you, your homecoming show at the Green Room. So that was a good one. That was a good night.
That was a good one, yeah, for sure, man.
And then Shet Fest, which I just still get shivers talking about.
we were both on a podcast separately with Stevie, weren't we?
Yeah.
Talking about Shet Fest. For anyone that's never heard of our bands or anything, like, we played this festival in the Shetland Isles, and I think every member of every band just assumed it was going to be like a 2 hour boat ride, and it was like 14 hours through like the biggest waves, like things
Yeah.
chained down and that.
It was when the captain came over the speaker on the way back, and he was like, obviously it had to be the way back. It couldn't have been the way there when we were all like having some beers and we'd have found it funny. It was the way back when everybody was just burst after like 3 nights in Shetland, and then the captain came on. He's like, we're looking at some 30-foot waves. I was just like, 30? That's the size of a house. The canteen's closed and there are staff coming round to hand out sick bags. Oh man, that was a rough journey back.
It was wild, man. Really bad. Like you said, on the way there, the bar was open. We were just playing like beer pong, but with like a tinfoil thing from someone's sandwiches,
Yeah.
scalping pints and stuff. But the way, obviously quickly we got smashed, so just forgot about it. But the way back, like, was, I mean, what was it? Was it one weekend, or was it like one day we were there or something?
It was the weekend. I think we went up on the Friday, and then we came home on the Sunday, Monday, maybe. Was that right? Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a whirlwind. I think we were only there for one night, man.
I think we were on the boat for 2 nights.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
went for one night.
That's
So
right.
it turned into like, it was like Friday night boat, Saturday night Shetland, Sunday night boat again, because it's like, obviously, like you said, it's like 14 hours or something. So it's like overnight.
Yeah.
Aye. So I think it was like a 3 or 4 day trip where we actually only spent one night in Shetland.
It was crazy. It
Very
got like
rough.
the highest rated TripAdvisor hostel, and like, I couldn't tell you if it was nice or not. Just lay down and go up.
Yeah, it
But
was
no,
bad, man.
great, man. Where does that rank? I mean, you must have had some debaucherous tales that maybe are best left unsaid. I don't know. But what's kind of
That's
some of
up
your best memories of Patersani?
there. Yeah, Shetland is up there. That was really like pushed the limits of what the human body could take. We went down to England a couple of times, and those were like, it's bizarre because like you always think like the kind of home shows like near to Glasgow and stuff, but for some reason we always got quite excited by a wee away day. A wee trip was always we always quite liked a wee away day. We went down to Liverpool to play at the Cavern Club, and that was like just utter chaos.
Nice, man.
Just from start to finish. I arrived at the train station at like 6 in the morning at Glasgow Central, and Colin Orr had like made like pre-made like rum and cokes for everybody and like the big Pepsi bottles. So we just like got on the train. I think he was expecting that we would start drinking them a wee bit into the journey maybe, and then like 6 in the morning we just opened them up and started drinking like on the way down. So by the time we arrived at Liverpool, by the time we rolled into Liverpool, we were rolling into Liverpool. So that set the tone for that full weekend, which was rough. But
It's
good
crazy,
fun.
man. It's crazy. We were talking again on these podcasts we did, and was that like maybe one of your first trips down south?
Yeah, I think we'd only been down south twice before that, maybe. So it was still kind of early on in the foreign travel. So yeah, it was still like that, getting really excited for it. Like, oh, this is a really big deal. We're going down to another city and stuff. So it was you get a wee bit of adrenaline, a wee bit too excited.
We were saying the exact same thing, man. We got like our first trip down south, and we rolled into Leeds, and it was like, we set off super early, we're on tour, like this is it, we've made it. And we got there about, I don't know, lunchtime. It's like, we don't need to be there till 8 p.m. So right, we'll just go to Spoons then, we'll keep it casual, rolling it in sound check like an absolute bag of shite. Next day, you've been screaming and stuff, and you're like, I can't sing tonight. Like last night was a stretch. You quickly realise, like, you've got to can this. You can have some beers before and after the show, but you can't be drinking all day. This isn't Motley Crue.
Yeah, that is exactly what it was. Like, we got down kind of lunchtime on the Saturday, and we were doing 2 shows while we were down there. So one of them was on this Saturday, kind of mid-afternoon on the Saturday at the Cavern pub. But the big show was the next night. Like the reason we were down was to play at the Cavern Club, like proper Beatles vibes. Like all of us were really excited, and I was on the Sunday night. But in typical band fashion, after the show on the Saturday afternoon, we all got way too excited, went out, got hammered, stayed out till like 5 in the morning, woke up the next day, needing a ventilator, and then by the time the show rolled, like you said, went into sound check at like 6 at night or something, dying, and by the time the show was actually on at like 8, I think me and Colin were back on the pints, and Scott wasn't too bad, and like, he never really kind of drank as heavily. And Craig was just like, didn't even want to get back on the pints. He was just like this like handsome young Jared Leto singer, and he was just like standing there like this pale, scared, shaking guy. Like, why have they brought these guys down from Glasgow?
Brilliant, man. Oh man, you quickly. I mean, it's quite hard, I think, to separate what you've learned from like real life and what you've learned from like, you know, decades, like since you're a teenager of being in a band. And like the amount of people that are close friends to me, and you know, for whatever reason, it's the first time you've spent the next day really hungover with them, and they're still like not sure about the hair of the dog myth. And I'm like, oh no, it works 100%. It is the only way you can get through touring. You know, it's like most people like Civvy Street, like if you like, you don't need to do that because you can just lie in your bed. When you've got to get up for another 4-hour drive, or you're staying with random people and you can't just lie in your bed, there's only one way to get through that.
It's and like you said, like even guys that you've done it 500 times, you've played, and like so many gigs, you've lost count of them. You like, if you're completely burst, like if you're really really hungover, nobody wants to get up in front of a couple of hundred people really hungover. Like no one wants to, like the only, like you said, the only way to get through it is to have a couple of settlers and like press the reset button. And but the hair of the dog myth it's not a myth, it's true. It does work, unfortunately.
100%, man. And that can obviously spiral into you just drinking all the time. But yeah, it's kind of part of the territory, isn't it? So do you, obviously, I guess obviously knowing, if people weren't aware, you and your brother Craig, your brother's in the band Patersani, your surname's Paterson, so obviously there was never any big huge fallout for why you guys quit the band, but was it just a term of like life, like it just wasn't going to be your priorities anymore?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we loved doing it, and any time. To be fair, it's been a while now because of all the lockdown stuff, but I'm sure it'll happen again when we're all able to get together for beers and stuff. But anytime we see each other now, we always go like, oh, should we start another project, or because we do miss it. Mm-hmm. We definitely miss the songwriting, the being up on stage, the performing stuff. But I think it was just every year it was getting harder to do it. Like it was getting hard, maybe not hard to get excited about it, but it was getting harder, like you said, like it wasn't the priority anymore. Like me and Lindsay had Eden in 2017, so obviously that took up huge amounts of my time, having a kid, and then you don't want to be like missing every weekend, and like every summer you're away with the band, like, and always like obviously a lot of the time Lindsay couldn't come because somebody would need to be there to look after Eden and things. So like it just starts getting, well, for me anyway, it just started getting in the way a bit of more my family life. Not so much my job or anything. Like I was always able to kind of work it around my job because I had the summers off, so that wasn't too bad. But yeah, having a kid was a big one for me. I'm sure it is for a lot of guys, to be fair. That like I don't know if that was similar to what you guys experienced in Wolves, like with people having kids and families and things, and it's hard to try and like make that work. I think it'd be easier now that she's a wee bit older again. Now that Eden's like she'll be 4 at the end of this year. That's terrifying. So she'll be 4.
Yeah, then I get what you're saying. It's that weird catch-22, isn't it? Because you couldn't have left the boys in the lurch. Not that it would be like. There's not really good language for it because no one would ever judge you for doing it. So it's not leaving in the lurch, but you can't leave them on pause until you get to the point where it is cool for you to do it. And then you can't abandon your family to be with a band, you know. It was exactly the same with Eggy, our first guitarist, my best friend.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, that's exactly who I was thinking of when I was saying to you about the Wolves lineup. Like, I know seeing Eggy at your wedding, your next wedding. Obviously, he was with his family, and like, it's hard. It is. It's actually when I met Eggy on your stag do, I didn't realise that he had been in Wolves at any point. When I first met you, it was the twins. So I didn't realise, but I completely get why he wasn't able to continue on and stuff, because it does, like, I suppose it's not necessarily about how much of your time it takes up. It's like how much of your time you want to put into it, because you could obviously hear about loads of people that they wouldn't they wouldn't be fussed if they were going away with the band every weekend. But I didn't want to leave my, like, I didn't want to go to work all week and then go away with the band all weekend, and my daughter is just like, who's this guy?
Also, like, man, it's hard enough, you know, when you don't have a daughter and stuff like that. Like, you know, I've been with Nick, it'll be coming up for 11 years, or was it 11? Yeah, 11 years just there. And, you know, from the start, I've been doing music, and, you know, it takes somebody that, you know, like I used to reference it in some of my lyrics and stuff, you know, it's guys and girls, rightly or wrongly, it's kind of brought up on this image that, you know, the guy will just spend every weekend getting dressed up and going out and taking to dinner and date nights and this and that. And I think that's quite a unhealthy and unrealistic, like, picture of what Disney men should be in that as well. But it also, on the other side of that, it is pretty shit for a lassie when you spend all your time doing that. But it's part of you, it's your passion, and if they love you for that, you can't not do it. But when kids come along, obviously it's a no-brainer.
To change it, I think, like, I don't know, from what I've seen, the relationships that tend to work best is the girl or guy knows, kind of, like, that sounds really bad, but almost knows what they're getting into. Like with you and Nick, when you met, you were like, obviously music, like you said, was your passion. She kind of knew that was like part of the deal, sort of thing. And obviously when me and Lindsay met, Lindsay was playing in a band. She kind of knew what the band lifestyle was about. Part of why we got on so well is because I was in the band, and like we had that in common. So then it would be quite difficult if someone then said, oh well, you know, that thing that we kind of bonded over, we're not going to bond over that anymore, we're going to take it away. I was really lucky that Lindsay was always really supportive of it. She never really was too fussed about me doing gigs and like disappearing, but it was more just for me. I didn't want to be a missing dad.
Nah, like, for sure, man.
Have you seen this man?
No, and Nick, to be honest, as well, although she's doesn't play instruments like that herself, you know, she grew up listening to all the same kind of stuff, and, you know, was a fan of what we were doing, not just a cheerleading fan, like literally. Because do not get me wrong, she's the biggest critic as well. If I let her hear a demo and she's like, "My, it's really good," and you're like, "Ah, fuck, I know what that means," you know. So yeah,
I've been to so many of your shows where Nick's been there, like working the merch and stuff, and like I remember the one at Buff Club, the Halloween one at Buff Club, for some reason, when everybody was dressed up. That was just a class gig. Like I think I was just having a great night, to be honest.
Definitely, man.
But yeah, I mean, when we stopped doing the band, I talked to my brother mostly. I mean, I'm sure Colin and Scott to an extent, but I talked to Craig more, about whether or not he wanted to keep the band going, and if he did want to keep the band going, I was obviously going. I would be delighted for him. And I said to him, like, if you want to try and find another guitarist, I'll train them up. I'll teach them all my parts. I'll come to practices. I'll get them set. But Craig was just saying, like, he just didn't fancy it, because a big part of what we were doing was, I think, because when we started the band, it was a 3-piece, it wasn't a 4-piece. So when we started out the band, it was me, Craig, and the original drummer was Danny Harris. So Danny was obviously sitting behind his wee drum kit, and but when you were watching the band, you effectively saw me and Craig, the two brothers, looked quite similar to each other. I think it was a big part of what we were doing. So aside from the fact that Craig and me are best pals, so when I said about, do you want to train up somebody else and keep it going, he was just like, nah, if you're calling it a day, I think that it's time for me to call it a day as well. Like, it just wouldn't, it basically was saying it wouldn't really be the same without you involved in it, which is really nice of him. I guess I don't know if that's like symbiotic, but yeah,
I can imagine, man, because we obviously how many times we changed lineups and stuff, and it was always blessed to have, well, it wasn't just luck, because we didn't just land on the first person that wanted to join, you know. So it was always good people joining the band. But every time, like, someone you've known longer leaves, there's a wee piece of it's like, this is less natural and more businessy. And I think, funnily enough, You know, when Harris, when Eggy and Chick had to leave, it was for kind of reasons that were nobody could have any issues with. Eggy for family, Chick, you know, he'd been in projects for years and was putting them on side to help us, and he needed to do his thing. PMX have gone quite rightly from strength to strength, so that was total amicable. And then we had the White brothers in, and they left because they were young guys and they'd given it a few years, but still they couldn't put off stuff that were formative years, and that made sense as well. And then we got people in who were great guys, but they always did feel like they were just kind of stopgaps to themselves as well. They had their own projects and that. Now we've got Callum and Andy in, and like it feels like weird because it feels like three different bands, but they're the most natural. You know, Eggy's my best friend. Eggy and Chick are like my best, longest friends, along with Rob and stuff. And the White brothers were, you know, pivotal to everything we achieved. But me, Rob, Callum, and Andy, we spoke about this, and I'll be honest with everyone when it feels like the most natural Wolves fit in terms of style, and we're all seem like similar guys. And we've already said, you know, when they can't do it anymore, like we won't be changing up again. It's too much. It wouldn't feel real anymore. We're not doing this for business anymore. We're all mid-30s. It's passion, you know.
Yeah, that's it. You do it because you love doing it. Like it, you know, it's funny. Me and Craig laugh about it again. It's like after a couple of beers, you guys are probably the same. After a few beers, you talk about like what could have been, or like we spend quite a lot of time talking about bands that we've played with, like we've either supported or they've supported us, and where they are now. And yeah, you do kind of go like from our point of view, if it was going to happen, it would have happened. Like some of the guys, like playing with Jerry back in the early days before the madness surrounding Jerry happened, like playing with him a couple of times, and playing with wee Capaldi, like playing with wee Lewis Capaldi when he was just like a wee guy, like a wee 17-year-old guy, and now he's, I think, one of the best-selling artists in the world at this point, which is mental. And even the Snuts as
obviously,
well.
like, obviously, just to put in, he had something you didn't have, though. It was the looks, you know.
Yeah, that was it. I shaved my beard off. Back in August, just before I went back to work when we had that like crazy weather. It was like just I was too hot all the time. It's like having a beanie on your face, and so I shaved my beard completely clean shave. First time I'd done it since my early 20s, and Craig went. Oh yeah, no, it's all right. Like you look a bit like you could be related to Lewis Capaldi as that. The beard's coming back, mate.
Super talented guy, funny as fuck.
Yeah.
I've never met him, but like, you know, I'd rather look like you is what I'm trying to say. No, I don't even have a long beard ever, right? But it gives me the absolute fear that one day I've done it before, I take it too short and I need to take it all off. I don't think I've been clean shaven since I was 30, honestly.
I completely like properly like shaved it down, razor, like proper clean shave. And I didn't know if I looked like a really old young guy or a really young old guy. It was really creepy, man. It was like
That's amazing.
So it was like you'd taken this like big adult guy and then put this kind of weird teenage face on it. It was very creepy. I did not like it.
It
So
used to be there's definitely like a swinging point, isn't there, on a graph? Like I'm not going to subscribe to this. So I'm just turned 34 in November. I'm not going to subscribe to like you're old. Like you just need to keep on top of your health and your, you know, this and like whatever, right? But there's definitely a point. There used to be a point where, you know, if I felt a bit rough or that, I would just clean shave. It wasn't my usual look, but if I felt rough, I would clean shave and you'd see my cheekbones and my jawbone. And I go, oh, yeah, you look fresh, man. Like, you look good. And there was one day where I did that and just went, oh my God, you know, what is that under there?
yeah,
and what are those wrinkles? And you just look like some creepy bastard.
That's exactly what it looked like. There's like a middle phase that people don't talk about. So you've got like the under 25 stage where you've got like the cut jawline, like you don't need to do anything and you've got abs and you're just like and then you kind of get to the 25 to 35 bit where you're not like an old distinguished guy and you're not like a young fresh faced guy. You're just kind of like, if you shave your beard off, it's kind of like the in between stages of Benjamin Button. like just when Brad Pitt starts turning into the old guy.
Yeah, he's just like a bit doughy.
It's a bit,
you've got court in the morning or something, eh?
it looks a bit a bit uncomfortable for everyone involved. So needless to say, the beard's kind of grown for quite a while since then. So
I was actually making a wee playlist about a week ago, man. Like before I'd asked you to be on this, and I just was having one of those nostalgia nights. I don't know if you sometimes have them. Like sometimes I just need to play tunes from the past, or be in the right headspace after a glass of wine or that, and I'm like, right, I need to listen to old songs because it's like the absolute time machine. Takes you right back to where you were, and it could be so many different styles and stuff. But I made a wee Spotify playlist about bands we've played with or toured with, or are just really good friends. And I was listening through your album again, man, and you know, I could say this about loads of bands. It's like you say, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Could you have done more? Like, who knows? You also need to bankroll a lot. I think we are both in the same position. We were never really willing to do that. It was like, if it happens, it happens. But that album, man, honestly, like, I think there's, you know, the whole thing's really good. But I think there's probably 4 singles there that, you know, would not have sounded out of place. Like, you had that really good sound where, it, and I don't say this derogatory. I love good pop. You want a pop band? I'm not going to say that, but I love good pop, like Sigrid. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
yeah,
It's unbelievable. Capaldi has really good pop music, different
yeah,
styles. But you had like indie, but not like Unite, fucking Oasis, like, and the rock bit, but not like moshy that would turn people off, which is probably a bit more like us. But you had that perfectly blended with pop sliced right in the middle of this sandwich. And yeah, I saw you. Obviously support, was it Eliza and the Bear at the garage, and you
yeah.
were starting to get these opportunities and stuff, and I did think like I could see it if they kind of take off. So was it quite a disappointment or a surprise? Did you think that trajectory was going that way?
Um, so with the album, just before my head gets too big and I float off the screen here from all the things you were saying, like with the
I don't
with
bullshit though, man. I would just keep it quiet if I didn't believe
uh,
those things. Do you know what I mean?
oh, thank you. I honestly do appreciate it. With the album, the problem that we had, the main problem that we had was it took us 5 years to get that out, which is like shocking. Like
Yeah,
you
that's
should be
pretty bad.
yeah, like we should have had 2 albums in that time, or if we hadn't released two, we should have been close to releasing the second, like maybe every 2 years, 3 years. Like so, to release one in 5 years was very slow. I think we were on the same speed of writing as Pride's, like that same sort of like problem. So we didn't write fast enough. That was always one of the issues that we had. But we did start to get around 2016. We started to get some good chances, like you were saying. Like we had the Liza and the Bear show, and then Sunset Suns in the main hall at the ABC before it burned down. And I remember being out in Glasgow around that time, like just going to bars and like just socializing. To be honest, it was never with any intent to promote the band, just going out because it was fun and we were like in our mid 20s and it was a good time. And I remember people saying to us like, um, people that were in the music industry saying to us like, make sure you capitalize on this time, like there's a really good buzz around your band in Glasgow, like make sure you guys kind of keep this momentum going, and like basically make what you were saying, like it was close to spilling over and it never quite did. I wouldn't say it was disappointing. Do you know the only disappointment I've ever had with the band was in 2016. I think that was the last year that Tea in the Park ran, and we didn't get tea break that year, and that was a disappointment. That's the only disappointment I've got from the time that we did it. But we knew a couple of people that were on the panel for tea break, flies on the wall, people in the room, and there were 16 bands played, and they said that we came 18th. And
Ah,
that was hard. That was hard to take. So
yeah.
we weren't quite the most unlucky band in Scotland. I think that went to November Lights that year, but we were like runners up for the most unlucky band in Scotland. So that was a sore one, and I was a bit disappointed when we found that out. But apart from that, no regrets, and I still really enjoy it. Like times like this, talking to yourself or like people that we met and stuff. Like I love the nostalgia and things, and it's definitely been a huge part of like not not just my 20s, but my whole life. Like the people that I'm
Yeah.
still friends with now, like where I would choose to socialize now and stuff. Like it's definitely been a pretty big influence on a lot of aspects of my life. I wouldn't have met Lindsay, wouldn't have met my fiance if we hadn't been doing the band. Probably might not have my daughter. So I
100%, man.
no regrets about any of it. Would it have been nice to be the next Kings of Leon? Yes.
Yeah, right.
It'd be okay. But yeah, no, it was still good fun.
I would take it. Would I say
Yeah.
no? No.
I wouldn't say no. Like,
No, 100%, man. I think, oh, we're getting a visitor.
oh,
I think that's magic. I think, we've spoke about a lot about that as well with us. This pandemic as well is certainly going to make people more appreciative of going out and being able to watch the bands that they like. Because let's be honest, I think there was myself included, I think everybody is included in this. We're so spoilt for things right on our doorstep now, in terms of like, oh, there's these new videos, great content from bands, and you just see the preview and then keep scrolling, and a new album's come out from a band you love, the Cribs' new album, you're like, oh great, you listen to the first 2 tracks, and then onto a compilation that you've listened to 100 times, and this band's playing in town, it's a bit rainy out, I'll just give it a miss tonight. But this pandemic, surely, like, what I'm getting at is, even if you guys didn't go full kind of back into it, you get together for a gig here and there, it could be about quality, and us included, rather than having to hammer the touring and probably just bring up all these great times again,
There has been, since we stopped the band, I don't know what, like 2 years, I don't know what, 2 years ago or something, but since we stopped it, there's been at least 50 occasions where I've been talking to Lindsay or Craig, and I've decided that I'm starting a new project. Like, it has happened a lot. Like, oh yeah, let's definitely write some songs. Like, we'll definitely do this. Normally a couple of beers involved in that decision, and then like it's just hard to find the time. And I know that's not really an excuse just now with lockdown and everything, but yeah,
it's weird that people ask like, what you up to, and it's like everything but nothing. Like, you've got to-do lists and you're doing these wee things and things that have never been, like, for example, you're putting all your videos on YouTube over the years, you're reformatting them and putting them on Instagram, and you're changing your accounts from Big Cartel and this and that because you never had time to do it. There's so many little wee life admin things that get done. But
you find things to do with the time.
Man. You've actually reminded me there, though, saying about new projects. So through lockdown, you posted up, and I think there was a couple of beers involved because it was late night, the lights were on, and you were having a giggle. But you and Lindsay did a wee duet, and I'm really surprised that you guys haven't done more of that. But I do know, like, it's easy for me to say from this position in the house, you have roles as mum and dad, and it's busy and it's this,
We've talked about it a lot.
Like, but she has a phenomenal voice, man. Like, again, that's an objective opinion of mine. I always say, and obviously there's nuance to both of this, but you can have a technically amazing voice and be a technically brilliant singer, but not a very interesting sound, or you could have a great sounding voice, but necessarily not a great singer. And what you obviously want is a holy grail, like in the middle. And like, I don't think I have, like, my range isn't great. I have no training and stuff. Rob's range and Eggy's range, unbelievable. But I've always been a fan of like how my voice maybe sounds, But Lindsay's like got the range and stuff, but also that grain and texture, like, phenomenal.
Oh, like, aside from that, Lindsay plays bass, plays guitar, plays piano, just an all-round really good musician. So we've talked about it loads, about trying to write stuff in the house, and like, to be honest, it'd probably be, I think if me and Lindsay started writing stuff, it would be more up your street. Like, I think it'd be a wee bit heavier, like rock, because Lindsay was obviously playing with Rising Pacific, and I think if we were to write stuff together, it would spill over to more kind of like all or like rock rather than the pop elements of it. But yeah, we've talked about it loads. It's just, I don't know. Hopefully one day it'll happen. Who knows?
You know what, man? Like, here's just my 2 cents. Like, I watch a lot of kind of what is the new way that people are engaging with things, and it isn't releasing singles and EPs and spending loads of time on original stuff, as much as that's my passion and that's the only real way I kind of tune into music. But it's people doing vocal covers or little acoustic covers, and see on an Insta, see if you two just picked one song, even a month, and
Yeah.
just like posted it on your reels or your TikTok stuff. I'm not hip enough to know about these days, but just on an Insta story. Honestly, man, it'd be really good for the public, because it's a good vocalist, good guitarist, but
As
it
long
would
as
keep that muscle flexed.
if it's on TikTok, as long as I don't need to dance, that would be the cut off.
Yeah.
If we're doing the covers or like doing writing originals or whatever, as long as there were no dances involved, I'd maybe be up for it. But as soon as a dance becomes involved, I'd have to sing out.
I'm with you there, mate. I can't think of
Yeah.
anything worse. But no, you should do it, man. You should set yourselves a wee challenge, because it's fucking class. Give the people what they want, Dave.
I'd need to try and convince Lindsay to do it, like, because we've got the wee one in the house and she gets up at like 6:30 every morning. By the time it gets to like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, Lindsay normally just like starts falling asleep in a dressing gown. So like I would need to try and we would need to wait till the weekend when we were both knowing we weren't doing something the next day and have a few energy drinks.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Fire it.
Nah, you've got to both be up for it. But yeah, that's my 2 pence, man. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask as well. So obviously that's the kind of the bit that I have knowledge about is us sharing kind of the band thing. But obviously it's not just so we know you're a teacher, but I remember hearing kind of you've never been like outward about it, which I think's to your credit. But you also do you run the studies, or do you speak about the studies linking like issues with mental health, young people, and social media?
So I studied that once. So like my kind of route into teaching was a strange one. So I studied optometry. So I was an optician and didn't like it at all, hated it. And then went back and became a teacher. As like just did the kind of like 1 year like postgrad sort of thing, and became a science teacher. And then once I was a science teacher, so like taught for a couple of years, knew that I really liked it, and I was like, all right, okay, well, like kind of looked at what I was seeing in schools and stuff, and there's loads of issues around mental health. I mean, I don't think that'd come as a surprise to anybody, but loads of issues around mental health in schools. But I just like, I mean, when I started doing it, I started teaching when I was about 24, so I kind of maybe had my finger on the pulse a wee bit more with social media than maybe some teachers that had been doing it for a bit longer or were maybe kind of in their 40s, 50s, like just maybe weren't as interested in social media, especially because we'd been doing the band and stuff, like we were using Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and you name it. So I was doing stuff for health and well-being with students in third year, and one of the things that kept coming up was social media, like bullying and anxiety and their sleep patterns being really damaged because of it and stuff. So I started to try and look into it a bit more, like just off my own back sort of thing, like is there anything to this? Like, because we're meant to do like kind of professional reading and stuff anyway. So I chose, right, I might as well make it something I'm interested in. And I couldn't find anything on it. Like there was honestly just like nothing available. Like, so
because it's still quite new.
It's just too new. Yeah, it's just too new for the studies to have been carried out. So I went back to uni and did a master's degree in mental health. And the focus of that was the impact of social media on adolescent mental health. So basically, how much is social media damaging young people? And there's not much research on it there, which I think is amazing. Again, people would probably be quite surprised to hear that, because I think a lot of people in our age bracket and younger, we all know that that's there. Like all of us know that social media negatively impacts people's mental health. I think that people do recognize that now, but there's not really any solid studies or data that backs it up. It's just kind of people know it's there, but no one's really tried to prove it in a kind of study. So that was the whole point in doing that, trying to prove it in a study, and it I suppose it did. It achieved what I was trying to. I suppose you should never go into something trying to prove you're right. That's like, because then it's biased, but just objectively, like using the results that were there, it is harmful to mental health. Like,
There's there's no doubt. Even just from a 10,000 foot view looking down, like
I know it's, but yeah, mainly.
if you were getting like, I was never like, luckily I was never bullied or anything, but I went to school where there was loads of like chancers, and even if you weren't the one getting bullied, you still get pelters for anything.
I know that's it. Like,
if that could come home with you, like I never even had a mobile phone till like fourth year of that, a hand me down from my dad. But
yeah.
if you could just be getting WhatsApped or like tagged in like memes, like we laugh at memes as adults, but if there was a meme that was like, rather than just a nickname going around the classroom, like memes are going around everywhere, tagging you in it and stuff, that must be like, how could you escape it as a young person?
It's crazy. Like, I think that the thing that yes, I kind of went into it, like into the study, sort of thinking that people always talk about body dysmorphia. So like the role of Instagram on like how young men and young women perceive their own bodies. So like if you're seeing pictures of Kim Kardashian on Instagram every day, does that negatively impact your mental health? And to be honest, it wasn't for body dysmorphia. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. Like in Scotland, I mean, it was only in Scotland to be fair, so I don't know how that would be if you took it worldwide, but in Scotland, most teenagers kind of got the idea that Photoshop exists. This isn't what these people actually look like. They kind of understood that. The bigger one was bullying, like what you were saying, not being able to get away from stuff. And the other one was sleep patterns, like basically not being able to put your phone down at night, like not being able to like turn your phone off or put it on silent or whatever, stick a film on and fall asleep or just go to your bed. Like you would talk to teenagers and they would be on their phone until 2 in the morning, literally like not able to sleep, and they would like fall asleep holding their phone. So that, like, the biggest ones were bullying and sleep deprivation, or like the impact on their sleep pattern. And it was Snapchat. It was mostly felt. It was like, I'm not trying to brand Snapchat the devil, but like because the messages do disappear and things, like you can say something to somebody that's not very nice, a particularly nasty thing. And if they don't screenshot that, which a lot of the time people are scared to do because of the consequences, like if they screenshot it, it could amplify the bullying, then it disappears. And when they tell somebody, a teacher, a parent, they'll go, all right, well, can I see it? And they'll go, oh, well, I don't have it. And like we understand, like me and you and a lot of people kind of in our age group, we understand, oh well, it's disappeared, it's Snapchat, we get how that whole thing works, we've probably used it ourselves. But if you're telling that to somebody who's 57, they might not understand. They might be like, what do you mean it disappeared? Well, where's it gone? Like I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen firsthand, where like you're talking to someone, like an adult, and they're going, well, an adult but like an older adult, and they're saying, I don't understand what you mean it's gone. And they're like, well, they don't understand the technology enough to associate with the problem.
Mate, I can agree with, like, I've never been on Snapchat. It's just like one of these things, like, I was around at MySpace and then jumped on the Bebo bus, and I kind of stopped at Instagram. Like Twitter, Twitter never got on it. Snapchat. So even me, when you're telling me they're like snapshotting it, screenshotting it, like would amplify things. Like I don't even understand that. So it's not easy to see. Sorry, it's easy to see why older generations don't kind of make these correlations.
This is like this would be like your 60-year-old or like 57-year-old aunt who posts on Facebook answering all our personal security questions. Like when you see your aunt answer, it's like 20 questions about me, the street I grew up in, my pet's first name. You're like,
stop it, Boris.
They take all your security questions off Facebook. Grant, get your security details down.
Oh, my mother's maiden name, well, it was Belle, and that's a lovely name as well.
Yeah. What 4 numbers are significant to me? Oh, let me think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
No,
it's
100%, man.
Trying to explain to someone that puts those quizzes on Facebook for everybody to see, trying to explain to them the concept of Snapchat and screenshots and bullying and cyberbullying. They're just like, that. What's a cyberbully? Is that a robot? A robot's bullying you?
I know, so it's easy to like point the finger at like head teachers and head mistresses and stuff, but like, yeah, there needs to be like standardized. I guess, information and education on whatever's happening, and they need to be quicker because these things change all the time. Like, again, I've never been on TikTok, you know, I just know things go viral, but there could be a function there that like is allowing the abuse of bullying and things like that. You know, setting dance challenges people just can't do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the solution to it is would surround like making social media more like certified, like making it more, I don't know if official would be the right word, but basically like right now all you need to open an Instagram account or a Facebook account or TikTok or whatever, like you just need an email address, and all you need to open an email address is 5 minutes. So like you can make a fake account like that, whereas I think that either in law in Scotland, I don't know how they would put that into practice. It's either in law in Scotland or putting it back on the social media companies like Facebook. You would have to make sure that people are who they're saying they are. So, like, if somebody wants to open a Facebook account, just say to them, right, that's fine. You can open your Facebook account. Can you send us a picture of your driver's license? Or can you send us a picture of your passport? And I know there are issues surrounding like GDPR and stuff there, but if that was the case, it would make it harder for people to open these accounts. They would also know that you are who you're saying you are, so it would make it less likely that you could troll someone or bully someone. Like if you knew that what you were going to say on Facebook was you were accountable for it, you would think about what you were saying on Facebook. Now I know a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't as well.
No, 100%. I think what you're saying there, some people listening may go like, what? So I'd give Facebook that? Yeah, but no one's saying you need to sign up to this. And if you're going to, like, we're not just talking about like trolls here, like my example of calling people names in the classroom. Like people are hanging themselves because of stuff that's I've known people, things have happened that have caused the trolls, if you like, or the public pressure, the witch hunts, you know, in a couple of cases, but it would never have spiraled into someone taking their own life had that not been an echo chamber and amplification on that online, you know.
A fairly basic philosophy. So like the way that I'll teach my own wee girl, because I'm assuming social media is not going anywhere. So the way that I'll teach her to interact with social media is, if you wouldn't say it to someone in person, you shouldn't be putting it on social media. Like if you were talking to somebody face to face and you wouldn't say that to them face to face, then you definitely shouldn't be posting it about them or to them on social media. So like I would hope that if I'm raising her the right way, she would understand that that means don't post, don't troll people, don't bully people. But yeah, I think if people were more accountable for what they were saying online, this just got really serious.
It's all right though.
If people were more accountable for what they were saying online, they'd be less likely to say it. Because the truth is, if you walked up to somebody in the street, me or you or anybody walked up to a stranger in the street, or like walked up to, like you saw that all that stuff that happened outside Ibrox with Scott Brown, where the Rangers fan made a comment to him when he was leaving Ibrox about his sister who had died, and like he rightfully, that fan was barred from football games and charged by the police. If he had said that on social media, he probably would just have got away with it.
Nothing,
like if he had created a troll account and just tweeted it at Scott Brown, like he would have got away with doing that, which is completely wrong. Whereas he's done it in person, the police were there, he's been caught. But the people that are doing these sorts of things online, I mean, the thing is, the police don't have the resources to chase down every nasty comment on social media. But
another kind of counterpoint as well is that now I've never been someone to like troll people or say things like that, but even
was trolling me.
It's that wee face, that wee meme grin face. That's my picture. But no, I've never like gone as far as that. So I don't want to give people like make excuses for people that do shit that they know you shouldn't do. But even just looking for a random reason, I was trying to find some old pictures. I was scrolling like way back on my Facebook the other day there, right? And I've not done that. Like, I don't think I've ever done that. And there's bits where I'm having like arguments online and stuff. Like, listen, if you need to, it's a pointless task anyway, but you know, if you go do it about something you're passionate about. But I'm talking about like irrelevant shit. And like me and the other people are like all caps locks back to each other. Now, I was cringing now. but there's probably stuff in 10 years I'll cringe at now. So I think also it's like uncharted territory. People are like you're saying, the context of what I was saying to people, I would say, but I would never be like shouting at them like that caps lock signifies, you know?
What you're saying is completely right as well. That like like our age group are the first, no, maybe not truly social media generation, but like my first social media accounts, I was about 15, sort of like Bebo and things like that, MySpace, Bebo. My first Facebook account, I think I was about 17 or 18. So like maybe we're not truly a social media generation, but we're close to it. And so like when I look at the stuff like that I posted when I was 17, I'm like, oh man, that is really cringy.
Totally,
Like
man.
really embarrassing. So yeah, there is a point in people do have to be given, like there has to be a statute of limitation. Like if you've said something, like when you see people that said something 10 years ago and then it resurfaces now and then they have to come out and apologize for it and stuff, and I'm like, that's,
Yeah.
if you still hold those views, fair enough, you should apologize for them, but like there has to be a point where you go like, this person's maybe grown up a wee bit. Like
I agree. The whole cancel culture, like again, like we were saying with everything, there is no one answer, but it also can't be one answer. Like, you know, if someone said something and has educated themselves, has opened their mind up to things, you know, is remorseful for the things that the views they used to hold, and even more so if it was just flippantly, they're like, look, I didn't realize the weight that carried. You can't just ruin someone's life for that. But
like
also, if they're still the same person, if they don't, then aye, fuck them.
like when I was really young, like primary school age, people regularly, myself included, would have, like if something wasn't cool or you didn't want to do something, you would refer to it as being gay.
Oh
And
my God, I can't use this now.
yeah, but like people
Yeah,
like,
I
so
know, man.
can you imagine somebody pulling me up now at 32 going,
Yeah.
I mean, when you were 8 years old, I did hear you saying that something was gay when you thought it was uncool. I'd be like, well, yeah, that is completely wrong. It's homophobic. It's completely wrong, and I'm sorry that happened. But I was eight. Like, and
Not only that, man, like you talk about like holding people accountable and stuff, like, you know, our dads here, like my dad's no longer here, or maybe would have these conversations because now I'm surrounded by and in circles and working towards like trying to eradicate stuff like that because of what I'm interested and passionate about and the people I've met through like football and charity work and stuff who are amazing people. But coming from smaller towns and that, like generation, like my granny would say the odd thing, my dad would say things. Now I've seen them with people of color or gay people in our family or whatever. They had no, and have, my grand's still with us, have no hatred towards these people, but language that's used
yeah,
was so flippant that it was okay. And I'm sure that happens worldwide. I'm sure people like say things about like white people, and people say definitely say things about in this country black people and brown people and homosexual people. But it doesn't make it right at all. But again, it's just like different times. And you know, I was around that. I never once said, "Here, you shouldn't say that." Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like
that's it. You would now,
you would now, of course.
but that's now that like now that we've kind of grown up, matured, you know that it's wrong. Like you have a better understanding of the suffering that it can cause for other people.
Of
But
course.
when I was, even like I'm saying, when I was eight, even when I was like 15, 16, 17, I was nowhere near as mature or aware of like other culture. Like you, I mean,
No, of
I'd never
course.
been out and seen the world, and like you do learn more about. I taught like
100%. I think that makes it more powerful, man. Like you're from a small place. I'm from Perth. Obviously, it's a city, but it's a small place. Your eyes just aren't open. You know, it wasn't until I started coming to Glasgow, and I'm not trying to like fuck's sake, man. I'm trying to work on myself every single day. But I've definitely over the last few years, and a lot of it inspired by my wife because she got us involved in things like this. She works within community, you know, and then through the football clubs that I joined and the things that I'm doing now with Glasgow Saints, you know, that this city has shaped me, and it's made me realise like your own personal life is not the most important thing. It's very important,
yeah,
but you're part of a massive, like everybody needs help and everyone needs to feel welcome, and like actually looking at views, you know, Of course, like I'm not going to sit here and say I've never said questionable things when I was younger
Yeah,
because you're just around the pack mentality. I've never been a bully. I've never been a racist. You know, ever
yeah,
these things. But flippant language, of
yeah,
course. But again, I would never say that now. You've grown, you've changed, and you realise the weight of that, and you can try and help other people realise that.
yeah.
That's the main thing. It's not about like lambasting the fucking stupid teenager. You
That's it.
know.
Exactly. Like when I, yeah, exactly. Like when I'm saying about challenging people for challenging bullies or trolls, I mean people that are doing it now. I don't mean someone that said something 10 years ago and they realised that it's wrong, and it just so happens that they didn't delete it from social media because, like you said, you don't go back and check that often. But like, I don't mean pulling people up for stuff that they said 10 years ago. If they do understand that it was wrong, I'm more meaning people that are saying stuff now, like
100%.
guys that are the
Yeah,
same age as me and you that are still on Twitter harassing footballers, and I'm like, that guys, come on.
I know. Almost, I mean, I think the power of unfollow and unblock is massive, though, isn't it? And I think, like, back in, again, we're all learning social media. I would try and everybody I thought was like saying something wrong, I'd try and like give them an education. You realize they're saying that, they're loving that. They're like, oh, yes, like, I'm going to troll some more. Actually, the best thing to do is go, you're getting blocked, mate. And then, like, they're not involved in it. That takes away the power. But yeah, anyway, I think we're on the same page with that. I did want to hit before we finish off because um, I think we're all so we recently a couple of the guys from the football team set up a group called Not Alone, didn't they?
Yeah,
And it's been really good, and I think everyone in there has been really open about facing different kinds of challenges, whether lockdown has been the cause of those or it's just amplified them. Obviously, men and women are all going through. I think everyone in the world has bits of depression and that in their life. Of course they do, but it can be amplified by different things. But you've been a really, really good voice in that group, and I just wondered, like, fuck's sake, it's putting you on the spot, but no one's going to have answers and stuff. But with your background and like looking into that for teenagers and stuff, like, do you have any theories on, because really it is alarming, like every week, touch wood, it's not been anyone I've known personally, and I don't say that in a congratulatory way because obviously
yeah,
someone knows them and that's terrible. I'm
no,
just feeling very lucky that it's not someone I've known. But it seems to be happening to people in my network, that they're losing people all the time, and at the moment that seems to be a lot of young males. Like, what do you think it is, and how do you think we get around it? I'm not expecting you to have the answers, but what's your
um,
take on it?
I think that with I think that with any man under the age of, well, maybe not any man under the age of 40 now, maybe guys between, I'd say probably about 10 years old up to about 40, so that kind of 30 year window between 10-year-olds and 40-year-old men, because probably kids that are younger than that, their parents are now the men that are in that category for the most part. So I think that one of the big things has been almost what we were talking about kind of 10 minutes ago, where we were raised by two generations of men, our grandfathers and then our dads, our grandpas and our dads, where the language that they would have used and their lifestyle was quite different to what the lifestyle of guys under 40 is now. So like my grandpa and my dad, like both straight white men, and wrongly, being a straight white man was like a free pass at life, like, which obviously is completely wrong. Nobody would dispute that. But it meant that you left school when you were like 17 or 18 and your dad got you a job in a bank or something. And just by being a straight white guy, you just got the job and you just flew into your career. And there was no real competition for the jobs because women were expected to stay at home with kids. People who had emigrated to the country, sort of black, Asian, were treated as second class citizens. People who were gay were treated as second class citizens. So, yeah, just being like a straight white man meant that you had this huge advantage in life. And that's the guys that we were raised by. Then you fast forward to our generation, and rightfully, cannot emphasize that enough, rightfully, that's completely changed, and women are being treated a lot more fairly in the workplace. There are much more laws, like much more legislation surrounding discrimination. So people who have immigrated to this country, people from ethnic minorities, people who are LGBT, like these people are treated more fairly in the workplace, and that creates more competition for jobs. But if you look at people like me and you, kind of straight white guys, our grandpas and our dads and stuff, they would still kind of look at, and our, even to an extent our mums and things would look at our generation of like, why aren't they doing like better than they are? Like, why are they not progressing as fast as their dad did or their papa did or whatever? And it's because obviously there's more competition for the jobs, and then also the fact that financially, our generation are living like in the hardest economic times since the 1920s and 30s. So like the 2008 credit crash, and then obviously this pandemic, there are less jobs, and the jobs that are going, you're expected to do more for less money. So and on top of that, the housing market's completely changed. Like, I think that back in the 80s and 90s, the average house price was 3 times your salary, whereas now it's 8 times your salary. Mm-hmm. So like, you're like, people like mum and dad, or like your mum and dad, would have left school, got a job, and moved into a family house, and like it was all just, I'm not saying it was easy, but it was easier than it is now. And I think that for young men, the problem is a lot of those pressures are coming down generationally and landing on our shoulders. There's a lot of expectation on us that we just, through no fault of our own, we're not able to meet. And that is a heavy burden for anyone, because you like to feel as if you're not doing as well as people think you should. I think a lot of young men feel that way. I think a lot of kind of guys in their 20s and 30s just now feel as if they're not doing as well as people think they should, like financially, in their job, in their career. The thing is, if you're lucky, if you're one of the lucky guys like me or you kind of realize, hopefully, that someone's worth isn't their property or their bank account. Like, I would always just take anybody, male, female, white, black, gay, straight. Like, I would just always take somebody at face value, treat them exactly the same way. Like, but you do still get people in society, unfortunately, that judge people on where they live, how much money they have, what car they drive and stuff. And I think that a lot of young guys feel that the pressure of, I'm meant to be the man of my house, I'm meant to be earning this big income and paying all the bills. But then there's also the new male role of, you need to be super husband and help with the cleaning and help with the kids and help with the washing. And I think that guys our age just we've not really found what our role in society is. And it's not I don't think it's our fault. I think that the role of men in society has changed faster than men have been able to adapt it.
I think that's a real good, because as much as I always feel like within my groups, I mean, other people might not share this opinion or that, but I always try to be like a leader, like a protector, in terms of like, I've, fronted the band, I've made the football team, like around my friends, I'm like the vocal one. I'm actually quite an anxious person, but like people maybe wouldn't think that, because my way is like, right, be right out there, and then that gives me a bit of space behind, inside. But even me, like trying to always like pick other people up and stuff like that, recently I've definitely felt the weight of it. And I've always, like me and you have spoke about, I'd never rate people because of their material possessions. What do they bring? What do they do? What do they help with? But even then, you're looking at, you're like, even if you can't help it in this climate, especially right now, amplified by COVID, I can't work just now. And then you go and apply for jobs, and you're like, you can see on LinkedIn, you're like, there are 500 people going for this job. And you're like, Jesus Christ, my friend just got a job at Tesco. He said there was 200 applicants for like a three shifts of 4 hours packing shelves. So do you think that's what it is? Do you think, I mean, obviously I'm lucky to have great friends, to have a wife, to have a house. She's able to work. And, I'm so proud of her for the work she does. if I've got all this and I'm worrying about it, it's very hard for me to imagine the single guy in his house, or he maybe does have kids and a partner, and he was the major breadwinner, and now he just cannot. He's maybe not got furlough. He just cannot earn. Do you think it's that pressure? Is just, even though we know, look, man, money is not everything. Even though we tell ourselves that, do you think just that external weight, because it's all we're fed, is just too much?
I think it's a huge part of it. Like the 2008 credit crash, recession, the property market collapsing and stuff like that was when guys the age that me and you are were just finishing school. So we were just like finished school, coming out into the working world, boom, recession. And then like we just start to get back on our feet again, worldwide pandemic, economy completely shuts down, and we'll be feeling the effects of this for years to come as well. I think that coupled with men not really knowing what their role in society is at the moment. Like, are you still meant to be the breadwinner, or are you meant to be at home with the wife and kids? And I think that we are like, although I think a lot of men struggle with their identity in that sense. Like I'm very much happy to be at home with Eden, like helping around the house and everything. Like very much a partnership. But I think that's fine for me, and I'm happy doing that in myself. But then if you look at like maybe some of the older generations, it's not all of them. Like I'm really lucky. Like my parents are really supportive. But I think that like you could see older generations going like, what's he doing at home? Playing with the kid, like playing at the kid, like playing with the kid. Should he not be out working, or like what's he doing? That's women's work, like the kind of outdated mentality. So you've got that pressure coming down on you. Like also the fact that it is so much harder to earn just now for all the reasons that we've spoken about, and I think that a lot of the time that just gets on top of young guys. Like you said, imagine you had two kids and a mortgage or rent to pay, and you'd lost your job and you couldn't work, and then on top of that, you didn't have a, like, if that was me, my mum and dad would be saying to me like, look, it's okay, like things will be all right, don't get. But like imagine on top of that, if you did have a dad or a grandpa that was going like, oh, you're meant to look after your family, like that's too hard. Like nobody should go through that. Like
and at this point more than ever, anyone, I mean, you know, who knows if anyone will listen to this, not because of you, because of me, but you know, if anyone is listening to this, you know, this is the period where, even though it's been hard already in the years that you've said, but it's not your fault. Like the whole world is on ice. If your job cannot be done just now, you're not failing because you can't get another job. And of course, this sounds like I'm just buffing myself up, but like I've got all these things around me that I'm thinking about people who are in my position who maybe don't, and they're, you know, maybe not able to vocalize this. I've, like that group we're talking about, I obviously posted, loads of people are posting, and you get great support and you've got support around you. There'll be people out there that don't have it, and obviously that's why this is happening with people taking their lives, and they need to know that like just surviving right now is a win. Like just keep going, you know.
Like I'm not for a second trying to like, I would never ever try and belittle suicide or anyone that gets suicidal thoughts or gets to that point in their life. Like I completely understand what would put people in that place, but I remember, I don't actually even know who the quote was from. I just remember hearing a quote years ago that suicide is a permanent solution to temporary problems.
Yeah,
I think it's so true. Like if people do feel suicidal, there's always, like, even if you don't feel like there is at that point, which obviously you wouldn't, there is always stuff that you can start to rebuild. Like you can all I know that people would go, well, it's easy to say that. What if you're about to lose your house, or like the only thing I would say to anyone that was in that position is, if you do have kids or a partner or family and stuff, and you are thinking, oh well, I'm about to lose the house, I'm useless, I'm not helping my family and stuff, your family would definitely still rather have you there. Like
100%, man.
Your kids would rather grow up with a dad without a house than not grow up with a dad.
Exactly. And even like more, I make no apologies for like trying to make things sound romantic, but it's true. Think about like the holiday you go on, those camping trips you've had with your friends, those nights when you just laugh like for all night, you know, like going and seeing a band, going and seeing a new city, like literally a sunrise, a sunset, like eating a great meal, just hanging with your mates, walking my dog, going into the forest and just feeling like, oh, you can breathe. Think about all these things, and you're probably in a quarter of your life. Like they'll come back again.
Yeah,
This is
definitely.
just a muddy
They'll,
patch of the road, you know.
they'll definitely come. They'll definitely come back. Exactly. Like you'll if you feel like you don't have friends at that point, you'll end up with like you'll meet friends, you'll make friends. Like if you are worried about where you're going to live, like you'll get back on your feet. Like all these sorts of things. Like I know it sounds like you said it's like cliches or like romanticizing the idea, but it's true. Like
It is true. And I
things.
think it's important to say it just now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about all this is because there's certainly like we need to look at the positives where there is some. I really do, you know, sometimes you could look and go, oh, is this gimmicky? But who cares? Like people are making movements to start up groups and start up walking groups, and sometimes you're not saying anything, and you might duck out the group for a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
you know, but when you are in it, like people are making the effort to like normalize talking about it and to say, like, mate, I'm here. Like, literally, if you need to just like fucking say, if you need to, if you have a wobble and you just want a message, like, there's people who actually care, man, you know?
Definitely, 100%. There's like, I think people would be surprised how many. I mean, I suppose it depends on finding the right people. But like what you were saying about the football team at Saints and stuff that you've been working on and that you've started and things like, I, I'm sure that if you reached out to any of those guys that you've not known for like a long period of time, they would want to help you. And like there are guys that I've not known for huge periods of time, and if they felt that I was the only person they could talk to in that moment, I'd be saying to them like, come round, grab a wee cup, like get a sandwich, man. Like let's stick the football on. Like let's talk through this. Let's relax. There's a bedroom there if you need it. Like I would hate to ever think that somebody that I knew closely or just an associate, like a just somebody that I kind of knew a wee bit. I'd hate the idea that they felt that there was absolutely nobody they could speak to. Like I'd rather they spoke to me than just bottled it up, sort of thing. Like, and I know that that's maybe a bit cheesy, but it is absolutely the truth. Like, I'd
Nah,
rather
I think you're right, man. I think that's
better in.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely going to be a good thing. People just need to, I guess, hold on. But like you said, it's not try to trivialize how easy that is for people to do it. But I think, you know, we're talking about the ills of society with the trolling and social media. I think we are like seeing a positive shift towards, you know,
There's a
people realizing that it's okay to reach out and people being good at helping others when they do reach out.
Yeah, I think we're really lucky. I mean, like I know maybe not everybody would agree, but I think we're lucky being in Scotland in that sense. Like, and not necessarily like it's not trying to like. I know that me and you are both SNP supporters, but maybe other people that hear this or see it won't be. And it's not trying to politicize it. Like, I think that just culturally in Scotland, we are quite good at helping other people. Maybe people would disagree with that, but I think that compared to some other places, Scotland is a welcoming place and also like looking out for people. Like I think in Scotland there's a good social awareness of trying to look after people in society that do need help that maybe doesn't exist in other parts of the UK. Like as a society, I think Scotland's more in tune with that than some other places. So we're lucky. We're lucky in that sense. And like you said, there's a
I think
lot,
so.
lot of really good people out there. Like it's not all negatives.
For sure, and I don't think that anyone listening to that who finds that a wee bit controversial, I don't think that's anything to do with Scotland inherently being better because I listened to this audiobook by a guy, Chris Ryan, called Civilized to Death, and it just looked at studies and it wasn't saying that like rich people or bigger communities where there is more wealth, bigger cities and stuff are like mean, but if they can't, long and short of it is, if they can't really relate from first-hand experience to like issues, it's like it's not on the register. It's like you're speaking a
Yeah.
different language. So they just like, you know, look at some poverty and kind of smile and walk on by, or
Uh,
look at this shit that's happening with these food bags, and why wouldn't they £30, I've got to make profit. You know, but if
Yeah.
Scotland's got a lot more poorer communities, same with the north of England and stuff like that. So if you've not got much, you grow up knowing what that feels like. And when people need help, you're like, well, I've felt that way. I'm going to help that person, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, yeah, just the example that you mentioned there, again, like trying to keep it away from politics, but like the example you said there about the food parcels and things like, and I obviously, like everyone else, I saw that on social media, and the people saying like, oh well, I mean, they've got to make a profit. What about the admin costs and the shipping costs and stuff? And it's like, how can
I
you
know.
how can you be saying that a company needs to make a profit ahead of somebody being able to eat? Like there shouldn't be there should be zero profit if it's going to get in the way with somebody having food. Like,
I saw somebody post yesterday, what, like, so what, do you think the state's just there to bail people out? And I almost like, you know, choked on my coffee. I was like, that's exactly what the state's there for. We fund the state. You know, if you look way back to medieval, we pay the taxes, we do everything literally so that we're protected. Like, whether
yeah,
that's an army, the walls of a city, when there's a famine, like the grain is given to the, you know, and then obviously richer and richer people have started to like take the piss with that, and they went to wars and they raised taxes and stuff. We've got so far away from hunter-gatherer people coming together for the protection of society, placing our ancient Greece as well, placing our democracy and shared role of voting for who we think's best for the community to be protected. It's
the whole
not to make a profit of the people in power.
it's great. Like the whole purpose of the kind of state, in the sense that we know people use welfare state as like a derogatory term now, like, oh, the welfare state. It's like, it's not a derogatory term. Like, the purpose of the welfare state when it was developed in the 50s post World War II was to make sure that people were looked after. Like,
Exactly.
the whole point is exactly what you're saying. Like, should the state look after people? Yes. The difficulty that people have is you shouldn't you shouldn't be going out looking for the state to look after you. Like, if you're in the position that I'm in, where you're able to work and you're healthy and you're able to go out to your job and stuff, then you should do that. Like, you should be trying to do that. But if you're ever in a position where through no fault of your own you can't do that, absolutely the state should be there. That's what it's there for.
100%. And
Like,
like anything, like when you get these lazy people talking about asylum seekers because they were unfortunate enough to be born into this crazy like atmosphere and like universe on that exact incarnation into a place where bombs were dropping, they shouldn't get anything because they're coming over here. Mate, of course they should. We're a world. We're trying to help everybody here. Like, there is so much. We have actually been brainwashed to the point where we'd rather famine mentality. We'd rather like look and sneer, and not us, but I say we, you know, sneer at people that are getting something for nothing, rather that we don't need, that's not coming off our plates, rather than looking at the people at the top who have so much and not being annoyed at them.
I know.
The minority are actually the ones that do that. The majority, because they're voting the Tories in, actually look down at the poor people and say they shouldn't get that, but are happy for the rich to be rich.
The crazy thing is, if there was a situation in Scotland or Britain where like there was a war or a tragedy or something, like, all of us would be absolutely outraged if they wouldn't let us into France or Germany or Spain. Like, if it wasn't safe to be here, like, if it literally, like, I'm sitting in Stirling just now, if it physically was not safe to be in Stirling, there were bombs going off, people running about with rifles and things, like, if it wasn't safe and I decided to flee Stirling with my family and I got down to like the English Channel and they wouldn't let me into France, I'd be the first guy that was outraged, going, I'm trying to keep my family safe. And all of us would be like that. But then when it's someone coming from Syria or Palestine or something, like, we are like, all of us are going, oh well, like that, like, what they should really stay and defend their home. Like,
And
that,
can you imagine?
you're not going to stay and defend your home. If you're a wee guy in Syria who's a teacher and has a 3-year-old, you're not going to stay and fight ISIS. You're going to run away. Like,
and can you imagine the media saying, "Oh, he said he was coming over here, but look, he's got an iPhone." That was the exact shit they were like printing. It's like, yeah, it's not a caveman coming here to steal your benefits. He had a mansion. I know people personally who have come from Syria, come from loads of places. parents were doctors, had a really big house with a swimming pool, everything. They didn't want to come to Glasgow and live in a flat in fucking, you know, the Gorbals, mate. Like, I'm sorry, they had it better. But unfortunately, that was stripped away from them with no fault of their own, you know? So
I know it's this weird misconception that everyone coming here is trying to come here because they desperately want to be here to live the Scottish dream or the British dream. And it's like a lot of the time it's just to do with physically being safe. Like
most of the time. Of course, like that literally is, it's called like famine, fear of famine or something like that. And it's just because we think there's not enough resources, so other people are going to steal from us. But there is enough resources. It's just been hoarded by the fucking elite.
Especially in Scotland, we're never running out of water up here.
Exactly, man.
As we sit on a nice Scottish night with the sleet falling from the sky, like I think within like 20 miles of my house, there's like 3 reservoirs or something that we're not running out of water. Like
that's why we need this independence, mate. We could have been like New Zealand. We've got it all up here.
Like,
anyway, we'll save that.
I know you're vegan, but if you ever decided you were going to eat meat, we've got plenty of venison as well since we killed all the wolves. So that's actually so relevant to speaking to you. We came from wolves, like we've killed all the wolves, so now we've got too many deer. So at least we could eat venison. Like,
mate, I'm a vegan for ethical reasons. You know, if we needed to survive and I wasn't, you know, putting an animal in a cage and subjecting it to all that. You know, of course, people who actually hunt and live organically, I don't have an issue with, you know, but I don't need to do that. So
yeah, exactly.
But no, for sure, man, for sure.
We have Holland and Barrett being there, and
exactly. Yeah. Just got this corn spam. You know what I mean? Like it needs it.
Our freezers. I don't think we could fit any more corn in our freezer because Lindsay's vegetarian but verging on vegan. I think her only vices are cheese. She really struggles to give up cheese and the occasional chocolate, but she doesn't drink milk and doesn't eat any meat and things, just cheese and chocolate. But apart from that, she's on a vegan diet. So like I'm like in the supermarket like that with the fine print on the corn, making sure it's vegan corn because apparently some corn's not even vegan. I didn't even know.
Oh yeah, man, it's got egg in it. Just tell her on the chocolate front, get on the Vigo bars, sell them in Holland and Barrett. Absolute next level. But yeah, we've been chatting for an hour 22 here, and this is called the Ammo Hour. So I better wrap this up.
You're gonna have to edit it. Yeah.
I know. We'll need to have I'm not editing it. It's been nice, but we'll definitely have a part 2. But there is something that I want to ask. I think it's a cool thing to hear from every guest that's on. If you could tell now, I don't know if you want to frame this. If it was you could be exactly where you want to be. So maybe nothing, or maybe it would be the music. I don't know. But if you could tell your younger self something now to kind of retrace steps, not regrets or anything, but if you could give them a wee heads up on anything, is there anything that would spring to mind?
Oh man, these questions are so tricky because I'm like a kind of butterfly effect guy. Like,
yeah,
if I did give my younger self advice, what if I woke up and my daughter wasn't there? Like,
yeah. Let's just say everything can be exactly the same that you want it to be, but if you could change something else.
If I could keep things the same as they are now, what advice would I give my younger self? I think I would tell myself when I was like 17 to drive more carefully. And I think I would tell myself to invest in Facebook. Like, go back and be like that, Dad, I know I'm 12 years old, but you need to invest in this company, Facebook. Like, I'm 12 years old, I don't have any money, but please can you invest money in Facebook? Like, I promise it's going to be okay. Be like, how do you know that, son? I'd be like, Dad, just honest. I've been talking to Kyle on Skype.
In the future.
A pandemic. He'd be like, what's Skype? I'd be like, it doesn't exist yet. Invest in that too.
Who's Kyle? I don't know yet, but just trust me.
I'd just invest in social media as much as it damages us all. Just invest in Skype, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. See anything social media, just invest in it.
And we'll troll everyone. Fucking hell. Well, Dave Zuckerberg, it's been an absolute pleasure. Listen, brother, I'll go wrap up there. And
Yeah.
we'll definitely need to have a part two. But thanks so much for all your chat, man. Loved it.
Cheers for having me on.
Right, brother. Take it easy, mate.
See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah, we're talking about